So you talked a little bit about survivor's guilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the idea that you made it and feeling guilty because of it. And I've interviewed a lot of people who have come out the other way and are clean now and have done really well in their life and feel that way. And it must be something that stays with you.
It is, and I think that's why continued support groups, continued conversations, seeking mental health, seeking counseling, therapy,
It's so important. Yeah.
It's important. And self-care is important. Working out, I process a lot of those feelings and thoughts. I mean, that's a great thing about running or biking or being on a spin bike. You could kind of zone out and reassess everything. And I think that, and then it's also a reminder that, like, I always say this, like, it's really easy to think that you made it, you have it, and then you get sick one day and you're like, I would give it all to not feel this way right now. And just to know that, like, it doesn't matter what you do in life, like, you get cancer, you get even food poisoning. In the moment of having food poisoning, I'd be like, take my car, just make me feel better right now, right? And so I think it's also knowing that, understanding that, like, you may feel like you don't deserve this, but also understanding that you don't deserve bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
That's
I think, like I said, it's trying to stay in balance and trying to encourage others. And I think the big thing I do when we work with patients, or when I train people to work with patients, is saying, like, remind them of what they deserve. Remind them that they could have what they want. They don't have to be this. If they choose to be, they have the autonomy to do whatever they want to do. But remind them that they deserve life. They deserve happiness. Doesn't matter if you lost your kids. If you're fighting to get them back, you can make this, and you deserve to be a mother. You deserve to have, to be called mom, or to be called dad, or to be called doctor or lawyer, or whatever you choose. And I think that's a big part of recovery, is letting people know that they deserve positive and good.
So let me ask you, since you are involved in the rehab business or industry, why do you think it's so fucked up? Why is it that so many people who then decide to get clean and seek out help are then caught in, fraud and systems of fraud and, human trafficking? And why is it so prevalent, and what can we do to fix this?
So in my humble opinion, right, like, a big part of it is we don't fund well enough for people to not want to be shady, right? Like, here's something that I don't love. And there was, somebody told me, like, urine analysis, it's liquid gold, right? Like, and one of the things that we do wrong is our treatment programs are, like, we're paying for UAs, right, all the time.
For urine analysis,
if you're a good clinician, if they're using or not. Do we really need to do a UA? Like, let's make that
right, because these groups or these companies can charge insurance thousands of dollars for urine analysis that is mandatory for sometimes for people to do every week or every month. So they're making a lot of money from just getting their people to go.
And at times billing Medicaid, right? Medicaid's medical necessity. Is abstinence monitoring through UAs, is that really medical necessity? So then you have, like, our system is built on, like, I don't take the clinican's word for it. I only take the UA. I could as a clinician call somebody in the judicial system and say, Mariana's doing great. They're like, what's her UA say? Really? That's, like, what we're basing. So that becomes, like, that's become, like, a foundation of abstinence monitoring. And it's like, really, do we really need that all the time? Do you know what I mean? Like, and so
it's expensive. Yeah.
And so then when you don't fund programs, right? When you don't fund programs, when you're not, like, looking at evidence-based, Colorado, I'm going to say this, Colorado is in this time right now where they're rebuilding the treatment programs. They're rebuilding it. I'm on the advisory committee for the Behavioral Health Administration. They have people with lived experience advising, and they're really doing a good job of looking at what's wrong, but the funding has to come, right? Like, and then,
it's what we talked about with Joe Rogan on his podcast, which was about the example of Oregon, where they decriminalized it, or they decriminalized. I can't remember, but they decriminalized it or legalized it. No, they decriminalized it, right?
So they had, like, we in Colorado we've decriminalized use, right? So it's not an automatic felony. It's like 4 grams or less or something. You can be diverted.
What they did in Portugal too.
Yeah. And so we actually have the several diversion programs throughout the state, and so One of the things is we don't fund prevention, right? Because it's hard for prevention to be evidence-based,
Mhm.
right? And so like we do have a prevention grant at the place where I work. And in that prevention grant, we're not working on the dangers of drugs and alcohol, right? They have Google, they know that. We work on self-esteem, communication, critical thinking, decision-making. It's hard to make prevention evidence-based. Like, how do I go, you didn't drown because I taught you to swim?
Yeah,
Do you know what I
exactly.
mean? Like,
Of
there's no
course,
way to
yeah.
capture that data.
Right.
So
You're not going to
prevention,
use drugs because I taught you how to not use
right,
drugs. Yeah.
right, yeah. And so prevention's not funded well.
Right.
Then we get into treatment. Then you're looking at residential treatment and what drives how long they stay. Pay, right? We have a workforce shortage of clinicians. People don't want to come into this field. I have insane student loan debt. So you have people that don't want student loan debt. They don't want to work in the field. We have overworked clinicians because we have a workforce shortage. And then on top of that, like you have this small group of people running all of these programs, because people are always saying like, we need more beds, like we need more residential treatment beds. I go, no, you don't have clinicians to run more beds. So not only that, but their stay is based on medical necessity, right? And medical necessity can be, somebody might see it like, oh, this person needs this person needs that. Oh, they're well enough to go home. They don't need, so the fact that the payer drives the success, right? The fact that it's hard, it's really can be difficult to capture medical necessity for addiction, right? Because if we're just looking at like medical necessity, we're looking at withdrawals, we're looking at physical health. I don't know if the system understands like what medical necessity for psychological issues are,
right,
for coping skills, right? Because, and if somebody falls back into addiction, then it becomes medical necessity again. Now we start over again. They're in there 3 weeks. Okay, they're good to go. We're not paying anymore. Medicaid's not going to cover it. You're off and running, right? And so the fact that pay drives it, right? And then the fact that pay drives it makes other people go, shit, I want to get paid. Right. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You just sit there and watch TV. We'll pretend we're a treatment center, right? Which is what was happening with the body broker.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there were like Zoom meetings with 400 people and they are charging it as group therapy and charging insurance and Medicaid thousands of dollars for 400 meetings.
And looking through the loophole, they did it.
Right.
They're like, no, they were in my group they didn't put in their documentation 700 people were on the Zoom. Right. Exactly. Right. They didn't put that in there. But anytime that we have like a payer dictating, even in the healthcare system, when we have a payer dictating treatment and that payer is dictating how long people stay, what they get, how
right. It's a conflict of interest, right? Because you're making money from having people be sick and staying there.
So like Portugal, right? Like there's systems in place to help, right?
Yeah, they did. I mean, it wasn't perfect for sure, but they were one of the first countries, if not the first, to completely decriminalize drugs, which means that if you're caught with until a certain amount, if you're caught with, an airplane full of cocaine, you're being arrested for trafficking. But if it's up until a certain amount, they would give you the option. You want to go to rehab or do you want to go to prison? And it turns out that the state actually pays less for rehab than they do for prison. Yeah. And so the numbers of drug addiction went down, the number of AIDS, incarceration, all of that went down. And they invested, I believe, a lot in having the infrastructure in place, which is the opposite of what happened in Oregon. Yeah. So they decriminalized it, but then they didn't have the infrastructure in place, the safety net for all these people that then wanted help and decided that they wanted to get clean.
Right. And so think about that. You have the infrastructure, right? Like we have the infrastructure, like to an extent in the United States. But here's the thing, like we know statistically 90 days is about what they need, right? And a good portion of that's going to be withdrawing and detox. Nobody gets funded on like for right up front. They do, but not right up front. Right. Like not right up front for 90 days.
So up front is what, 60 days?
So
30 days probably.
No, it's your treatment plans are updated. We have to reassess. We have to submit to Medicaid. So it could be a week, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 4 weeks. And so then that does create people. That makes clinicians, if they want to get treatment, then you start writing to how can I keep you here versus an honest how is treatment going, right? And so like, because you want to make sure your patients are getting the longest care. And then because that system is so flawed and people are just, they kind of know what wants to be said, right? So then you have some people that aren't doing treatment at all, but they know how to write to treatment, right? And they're submitting this. And then you have other people who are really good clinicians, and they're writing what's right, and then it doesn't get funded because they're showing progress and less medical necessity.
Wow.
So the fact that we don't have, and I'm not saying we should have a cookie cutter program, because we should have a program that's patient-centered, programs that are patient-centered, that revolve around what the patient wants. If the patient comes in and they go, I want to work on my fentanyl addiction, but I don't want to stop drinking, okay, then let's work on fentanyl, right? Let's not even talk about the alcohol. So I think we need person-centered treatment, but we also
individualized
need individualized treatment, right? But we also need to know that, like, because if you're clinicians, you're already short on clinicians, and they're spending all their time documenting. They're spending less time with the patients because they got to document to get paid, and they got to get people paid. They got to make sure that there's a payer, because it costs a lot to run a treatment center. It costs a lot to have clinicians. People don't want to work for free. I couldn't work for less money. I feel terrible, but I have student loans. Do you know what I mean? I have a life too. So you want to get paid for it, but at the same time, you know, you also, every time you pay a clinician, that goes less into the system, less into treatment, less into the food. You know, we most treatment centers eat a lot of cost, right? They just chalk it up to the game. We the ones that are doing it right, the ones that are passionate and caring. I think what could help our system is prevention, intervention, workforce development, also employment development. You know, we talk about purpose, but making purpose a part of, like, necessity in treatment, like, right? If you're constantly writing to medical necessity, how often do we get to spend working on purpose, right? That happens like in outpatient or later on.
Right.
It's just a lot of us that are in the field that are doing what I do at our treatment center and what Colorado's trying to do. They're trying to do it right, but the funding is up and down, right? Prevention education is based on grants. Like, there's always grants. So one day you're helping this community, the next day you're helping that community. What we've started to do is we've gotten all our trainers that teach evidence-based curriculum. They become trainers of trainers, so that when we have the grant, we go into the school system, we teach, and then we certify the teachers to carry it on. So when we lose the grant,
they can still do it.
They can still do it.
That's very smart.
So that's what we're trying to do. Right. So it's just a flawed system I want to say that, like, I heard Jelly Roll was trying to open a huge treatment center. Right.
I heard that too.
Right. And so I was like, somebody that's been through it, that would be willing to be innovative, that has deep pockets, can structure this, and that might just be the way we're going. Like,
you should reach out to him. Let's
get
you guys together.
Jelly Roll, call me. I heard he's called Veggie Roll now that he's lost weight. They were calling him Veggie Roll. But hit me up. You just pay my student loans, I'll come work. No, but I think that, I think it's going to take some private funding to really truly put it together and put it in evidence-based.
Right.
We got to get studies on it and everything we're doing, but it's hard. Like, thank God,
it's very hard.
Several of the programs in the state, they use an active recovery fitness place called the Phoenix, or they use Addict to Athlete. Thank God some treatment centers have those options, because we don't talk about nutrition or fitness as much as we could talk about it, right? And then also there's such strict laws around credentials and credentialing. Like, if I'm a clinician, I'm actually a certified personal trainer, but if I'm talking to somebody about nutrition, you could get your license creeped because you're not a nutritionist, right? So there's also, like, all of these boundaries, like, where I could connect with you and I could help you, and I'm trying to do whole person care, but I can't really talk outside my scope. So if I want to talk about nutrition, I got to go get another credential and another student
get more
loan.
in debt.
So
exactly.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Right.